Hi, my name is Tacey Melvin, and I'm a Marriage and Family Studies major at BYU, Idaho. I had the chance to profile a family therapist this week. Her name is Lindsay Wallace-Doherty. She's a counselor. She's also certified with the Biofeedback Certification Institute of America, and she is nationally certified. She can be reached at her office, which is associated with Kids Are Great Pediatrics on North Weber in Colorado Springs, Colorado. The phone number there is 719-577-4200. Lindsay is in private practice, which means that she is able to set her own hours, come and go as she needs to, take time off as she needs to, and she can make changes to her circumstances without having to worry about a boss. She is a practicing Christian as well as a counselor, and she kind of thinks of her work as a calling. It's important to her that she maintains her family as her first priority in life, and she feels like working as a therapist allows her to do something that's a little different and allows her to be a better mom because her focus is not always on one thing. The pediatric group she works closely with is comprised of primarily open Christian people, and her previous circumstances at work, she was in a practice in an office with 3 other women, and they were hostile about Lindsay's Christianity. So in order to get that more hospitable environment that was more nurturing, more conducive to Lindsay's own beliefs, she ended her relationship with those ladies and shifted over to where she is now. She took a big pay cut, about 50% when she made that move, but she also shifted her focus to provide services to clients who have been turned away by other therapists because they rely on government insurance, which generally does not pay as well. She typically sees patients just 3 days a week, or about 25 hours of face-to-face client time. And the ability to change her work environment from one hostile situation to a nurturing situation makes a big difference to Lindsay. That flexibility is really important to her. And it's only possible because Lindsay's in private practice as her own boss. She places really high value on that flexibility. One example of where it came in really handy is that a couple of years ago, the Colorado Springs community was caught off guard when a forest fire topped a ridge and then raced down into some of the communities around the edge of town, including Lindsay's own neighborhood, where about 200 homes were destroyed. Lindsay's home wasn't destroyed by the fire. It was able to be defended by the firefighters, and it was saved, but there was extensive damage, and every time it rained, her home was subject to flooding and mudslides. So it was quite a stressful time for Lindsay and her family, and she has young children still. So it was nice that Lindsay was able to basically walk away from her practice, putting everything there on hold for about 6 weeks while she and her family lived in a townhome until their home was in a condition that they were able to move back in and resume some normalcy to their lives. If she had been working for someone else, it's unlikely that Lindsay would have had that flexibility, and she would have had to choose between her family and her practice. In this case, she was able to serve both, walking back into her clients and everything once everything was restored at home. Some of the stressors that Lindsay has dealt with in her early years of practice, she had a really hard time with the emotional toll that it took and the way that she wanted to fix everything for everybody. She felt a lot of heartache for the clients that she dealt with and the things that they were dealing with in their lives. And it was bad enough and disruptive enough at home that her husband actually told her she needed to she needed to find a way to deal with it such that she could come home and enjoy being a wife and a mother, or she needed to find a different job. She needed to find a different way to enjoy life. She says that she learned that making a difference in someone else's life, however small that might be, was better than making no difference at all, and that has really helped her. And also that if her family is her first priority, she needs to handle her clients in such a way that she still has something to give her family when she gets home, that her work is a blessing to them instead of a trial and a stress. These days, Lindsay finds most of her stress in the clerical things that she has to deal with. There's a lot of insurance companies out there. Lindsay is a provider for a lot of them, which means that she needs to know all their different billing policies, all the documentation policies that they implement, all of the things like that that go into actually being able to get paid. She does have a third party that does her billing for her, but anytime there's an issue, Lindsay has to be involved in resolving it. One example of a nightmare she has dealt with in those clerical tasks is that when the military insurance TRICARE switched from being handled by the big company TriWest to being handled by United Healthcare, United didn't really seem to be prepared for the quantity of work that was involved there. They didn't expect to win that contract. And so the transition has been a nightmare, both particularly for providers, but also in some cases for clients. It's been almost a year since that transition happened, but Lindsay still has patients. My family actually is one of them, where we've been receiving her services for this entire time, and she hasn't been paid for any of it since that transition. from Lindsay's perspective, TRICARE and United are not talking to each other. They're not trying to resolve issues the way that they should, and that's what needs to happen. They need to get on the same page. It's very frustrating for her because she'll comply with what United says, and then TRICARE will tell her something different, and so she'll do what they say, and then United will deny it. And it just goes back and forth. She hates the way that she has to go from one clerical task to another, or from one phone call, or one email, or one account, putting out those fires, as she says. However, Lindsay really, really appreciates the flexibility that comes with being in private practice, and those trade-offs are worth it to her. The benefits in her position, there aren't things like health insurance and retirement unless she takes care of them herself. They're not part of a package with her employment. But in her case, her husband has a good job where he has all of those benefits, and so she doesn't have to think about those things too much. It's not a factor in her work decisions. Again, she kept coming back to that flexibility just being tantamount to her position. And she also points out that there's some spiritual satisfaction in being able to answer the call of people who really need help. She really, really does approach her job as a calling that the Lord has asked her to help these people, and she does the best that she can to make a difference for them and to share what she can with them from a spiritual and, of course, a counseling perspective, whether they realize which source they're getting or not. And she points out that she really, really feels like she's doing the Lord's work by helping these people.